from?
Originally from Massachusetts.
And how long have you been in North Carolina?
22 years.
All right, well, how'd you get into the military?
I joined right after high school. Grew up in a poor family, couldn't go to college, so my brother went to the service and he got some GI Bill, so I figured that'd be a good way to go to be able to go to college. So I joined in September of 1963.
Early on.
Oh yeah.
You're infantry, right?
Yeah, I went through advanced infantry training in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and one of the best stories is after that they were calling people out where they were going, and they would call names and say, all these people are going to South Korea, or all these people are going to Germany, or all these people are going somewhere else. And after they called all the names, there were two of us, me and the guy that I joined with. So where are we going? And they said, and these two lucky son of a guns are going to the 3rd Infantry, the Old Guard in Washington, D.C. And so we went up to the Old Guard. I stayed there almost 2 years before they sent me over to Vietnam.
Once you heard you were going to Vietnam, what was that conversation like with your family?
Well, they were the first ones over there, basically, so the war had a lot of news on the radios and TVs, so they were a little upset, very scared, of course. And but there were just a lot of us from the Old Guard that went over to relieve people that needed help. A lot of people were leaving or getting killed or whatever, so we were basically taking over for those who have gone.
What were some of the? I want to make sure I asked it the right way. What was your experience like when you were there? What all did you have to do on a daily basis?
Most of the times we were in the jungle. We'd be helicoptered in and out, and we could be out there for weeks at a time. They would drop in food, and I think after a while you almost got used to it, except when you were on point, being in the infantry and being a rifleman. Like every 4th day I would have to be the point man and walking through a jungle, and that's pretty scary. You don't know what to expect. So, but after a while, even that you got pretty used to it. You always looking for booby traps or things that would ring a bell. Luckily, I never found one, so I was lucky in that area.
What were some of the battle times like for you?
Yeah, most of the time you did not see the enemy. Excuse me. You would be firing at where they were firing at you. A lot of times you did. I think like in the Michelin rubber plantation, people running behind trees, in front of trees, and trying to shoot them as they were going through. It was almost like a carnival game, where you see the thing pop up and you try to shoot the thing down. But basically that's what it was. And then we had down in the Vung Tau area, where the Viet Cong would bring in supplies at night on rivers. We would set up at night, and there was supposed to be nobody else on there, so anything that came by, we would just open up and kill. Again, you probably never seen them. We'd run out after the ambush, and we'd throw in what they call grenades that would bring the bodies back up in case people are trying to swim away, and then they would shoot them there too. So that wasn't really a battle, that was just an ambush. They never stood a chance. Until one day, probably one of the scariest days, we didn't realize there was a boat behind the sampan that we just ambushed. And it was a big boat. There was probably around, I'm guessing around 100 Viet Cong on that boat that came after us. And we actually ran, and we were behind the wall of an old cemetery. And all the cemeteries in Vietnam are above ground, and they have little walls. And there were 7 of us that were in the squad, and we got behind the wall. and they were in the woods firing at us, and we called in helicopter gunships, but it was still nighttime, so they were just firing at will into the woods until light came. And then they found out where they were, and they drove them away, and the helicopters landed, and we got out of there. But that was probably the scariest time. We had people had their backs, shirts, bullet holes in through, but they never got above the wall. So actually, nobody even got wounded. So it was pretty amazing.
Had to go into the cemetery to stay alive.
Yep. Yep.
Wow. What was daily life of trying to communicate back home? Was there a chance to write letters for you? Or
yeah, we would write our own letters, obviously, when we got back to base camp. I think we moved our base camp like 3 times. You have to start all over again. And then even when you're in base camp, like every 3rd or 4th day, you'd have to go out in the perimeter, what they call the LP, the listening post, to make sure the VC weren't trying to get in. But other than that, when you were back in, they always brought you plenty of beer, plenty of cigarettes. We never ran short of that. And even out in the field occasionally, they would fly in like fried chicken and beer. That's a hell of a war. You think back to like World War II or something, and those guys never had that. But I think they said, I read somewhere where in World War II, the average infantryman fought like 80 days out of the year. And in Vietnam, Vietnam was something like 240. So we were out in the field a lot, in different places. I never knew where we were until they gave us a yearbook, first year in Vietnam. So I was reading the operations, and they told us where we were, and they would go like name of the cities, and near Cambodia. I had no idea. We could have been in Cambodia. No idea where they were.
Some veterans I talk to, they say, that the news media would say, hey, we'll be out 2 years and no problem. This war will be over with. Why do you feel it lasted as long as it did, first of all, and it just never got solved?
Politics. No question about it. They were limited to 500-pound bombs. They wouldn't bomb Hanoi. It was all politics. Even when we left in the convention, they signed that once we left that they would not come after invade South Vietnam, and they did. We didn't do nothing about it. So we lost 50,000 lives for nothing, basically. And now look what we're doing over in Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran. It's the same thing. Take a city, all these poor kids lose their legs and arms and die, and they move out and they go back in. So we don't know how to fight a war anymore. I mean, if you're gonna fight one like you did in World War II. Win the war and end it.
What was it like coming home for you? At this point, it was still early in the war, but
yeah, it was
starting to figure it out by this point.
Yeah, it was. I probably didn't talk about the war. I actually started going to college when I got out, and never mentioned anybody in college that I was a Vietnam vet. Never. Just did my own thing. I got married. I had a rough time for a while. Got a divorce. But again, I probably didn't talk about the war until after I moved down here, and I met with these guys maybe 8-9 years ago, and it really helped in talking to other veterans. And so otherwise I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you. I would just, and I think most veterans are like that. They don't want to think about it. They have nightmares at night or whatever, and they don't tell anybody, and they just let it go. Yeah. But since I've been back 3 times, I think I'm over any problems I had before. Bill must have told you that we were building building playgrounds for orphanages. So it was, and we sent a girl to college over there, and so it's something that we can pay back a little bit to the people that we really disappointed. We left them high and dry. So try to give back a little bit when you can.
Did you go back to any of the locations, or were you able to figure out some of the locations you were at before? Or?
The only one I know was Benoit, which was near Saigon. It was probably the last base camp that we had, called Bearcat. Other than that, I have no idea where we were. Not a clue.
You just knew you weren't home.
Knew we were in the jungle somewhere.